is Countdown to Launch, New Mexico's journey to space.
In less than 48 hours, a Virgin Galactic spacecraft with a crew inside will launch from New Mexico's spaceport. It's an event the state has been working on for decades. Tonight, we explore the events leading to this point, what space travel could mean for our economy, and why you should pay attention even if you have no desire to be an astronaut. Our state has been contributing to space exploration since the 20s. That's right, a century, making advancements that pave the way to this weekend's historic launch. And KOAT will be there live at Spaceport America on launch day. Good evening. I'm Doug Fernandez.
And I'm Shelley Verbando. Welcome to Countdown to Launch, New Mexico's journey to space. The launch is expected to happen Sunday morning at 7. That's when the launch window opens. And it can last anywhere from a few minutes to several weeks. Even though Virgin Galactic wants to launch Sunday morning, the exact day and time depends on weather and technical readiness. When NASA and companies like SpaceX send up supplies for the International Space Station, the launch is closely timed to allow the spaceship to meet the space station where it is in space. For Virgin Galactic, there is no space destination to dictate timing. Its window is based on the area in space being clear of other craft and debris.
Sir Richard Branson is the founder of Virgin Galactic, and he'll be going up on Sunday. He first met with then Governor Bill Richardson 16 years ago with a vision of a business that would take regular people to space. Now, that same year, the New Mexico Spaceport Authority was created to figure out how this billion-dollar project would be paid for and managed. The state paid 2/3, about $212 million, and in 2007, Doña Ana and Sierra counties passed bonds to cover that cost. Construction started in 2009, and the next year, the 12,000-foot runway was finished. In 2011, the hangar and other buildings were done as well, and you can see Sir Richard Branson christening the building with a bottle of champagne there.
Virgin Galactic is coming home to New Mexico, and it's coming home now.
Just 2 years ago, activity and hopes for Virgin Galactic started to soar when they announced all flight operations. Mechanics, engineers, flight crews, and pilots were moving to Spaceport America from California. Well, before any craft could fly from Spaceport America, it had to be designed, built, and tested over and over.
The road from concept to Sunday's launch took longer than expected, and it was costly, even claiming lives in the development. Stephanie Muniz looks at how Spaceship Two Unity came to be.
Unity is the name of the craft taking the pilots and crew to space. She's the second spacecraft built by Virgin Galactic. The first was Enterprise, revealed in 2009 along with the mothership Eve. Their inspiration came from a contest called the X Prize. It was a competition that asked privately funded rocket makers to fly into space. An aerospace engineer named Burt Rutan won, and Virgin Galactic worked from his design.
The significance is the realization that, hey, this is for us to do now. This is not only for governments to do. And very soon, it'll be affordable for you to fly.
The effort to take the concept to working ship was not without setbacks. An explosion during an engine test seriously damaged a building at the California build site. 3 employees were killed and 3 more were injured. And on the 35th test flight, another tragedy. This time, human error destroyed Enterprise and killed 1 of 2 pilots on board.
After it was unlocked, the feathers moved into the deployed position, and 2 seconds later, we saw disintegration.
Despite fears that testing delays would close the program before the first launch, development continued. Unity, the second spaceship in the series, was nearly complete when Enterprise crashed. It was unveiled in the Mojave Desert, and Virgin Galactic tickets to take a ride quickly sold at $200,000 each. At the time, it was hoped she would launch in 2011, but those dates would change many times, thanks to fuel issues, changes to the motors, and that tragic crash.
I have to look at my crystal ball here and predict the best I can. Is now that Virgin will start flying in August of 2014.
Virgin Galactic hopefully will be flying by the end of this year.
So if July the 18th is my birthday, why not?
Unity took her first space flight from the California test flight in 2018, and she relocated to New Mexico with her mothership Eve in 2019. After a failed launch attempt and battling COVID restrictions, the first New Mexico launch came together in May. with Unity making her first flight to space from Spaceport America. Stephanie Muniz, KOAT Action 7 News.
Just 2 weeks ago, the FAA granted Virgin Galactic a full commercial launch license. That certification allows the space line to fly customers into space.
New Mexico boasts the only restricted airspace from the ground up because of testing done at neighboring White Sands. The spaceport property covers about 27 square miles of desert. It's really not close to anything, and that's what Virgin Galactic needed to do so much testing. It's 45 miles north of Las Cruces and about 20 miles southwest of Tier C. Another advantage of the location, altitude. Launches get a head start of about 4,600 feet. Launch and landing conditions are critical for spacecraft launches and landings.
Even something as simple as wind can stop the countdown. Chief Meteorologist Joe Diaz has forecast for launch day.
That's right. In fact, when you look at some of the considerations I got to be looking at, it has to be good visibility. You don't want areas of blowing dust or fog. Generally, light winds. I mean, if you have a runway here and a crosswind much over 15 miles an hour, that can create a problem. Of course, you don't want any area thunder or lightning, and certainly you want rain-free skies. Now, here's the situation. We have a front to the north that's going to be spilling in some humid air, so there's going to be a changing weather environment on launch day Sunday. But they don't launch in the afternoon, they launch in the morning. So let's look at Future Track in the morning. There you see that's where Spaceport America is, and we have generally clear skies across the region. As we advance it toward noon, you can see the clouds starting to form. As we advance into the afternoon, yeah, we have scattered thunderstorms all over the place, and not just storms, but these particular storms could produce severe weather with large hail, potentially damaging winds over a large part of New Mexico. But again, they don't take off in the afternoon. So let's look at Future Track in the morning. This is 7 o'clock when they're set to lift off. You can see clear skies across the area as we advance it to 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, because they say the flights all told could be 2.5 to 3 hours long. So here's the forecast that I'm going to go with for right now. For the 7 a.m. liftoff window, conditions look pretty favorable, so do the winds. And for the 10 a.m. landing window, again, it looks pretty favorable as well. And thank goodness they have this scheduled in the morning, a totally different environment in the afternoon. Shelley?
6 people will be on board Unity when it takes off, and we've told you the company's founder, Richard Branson, will be in the cabin. But what about the others? Stella Sun introduces us to the pilot and crew.
This tweet from Virgin Galactic announced the people entering space from New Mexico. 6 are on the crew, 2 pilots and 4 people called mission specialists. The company founder, Sir Richard Branson, is one of the mission specialists. He's testing the private astronaut experience.
As the Virgin Galactic founder, I am so proud to have this remarkable crew of mission specialists and pilots by my side as we fly to space.
2 pilots will fly Unity into space. They are Dave Mackay and Michael Muscucci. Mackay is the chief pilot, a Scotland native who has been with Virgin Galactic since 1995. Muscucci used to be a shuttle commander for NASA. Beth Moses is the chief astronaut instructor and only one of the mission specialists to have gone to space before.
I was the first person to fly in the customer cabin of Spaceship Two as an engineer and an instructor testing the cabin.
Moses is in charge of the cabin layout and developing the training program for customer astronauts. Colin Bennett, the lead operations engineer, riding along to evaluate the experience.
When I was younger, I assumed that space was only available to a very select few. I had no idea myself that I would ever be in a position to go to space myself, but here I am.
Bennett, a graduate of the University of Illinois and the University of Liverpool, majoring in aerospace engineering. Shrisha Bandla will oversee some research on board. A graduate of Purdue and George Washington University, she was born in India and will only be the second Indian woman to go to space.
This is an incredible opportunity to get people from different backgrounds, different geographies, different communities into space.
Branson has always wanted to go to space.
I'm just expecting the most extraordinary trip of my lifetime and extraordinary trips of a lifetime for other people in the future.
And this flight is just another step towards space tourism. I'm Stella Sun, KOAT Action 7 News.
The mothership has to go high in the atmosphere so it can launch into space. The pilots of that aircraft are CJ Sturkow and Kelly Latimer. They fly to almost 50,000 feet to release Unity into space. And once that is done, they pilot the mothership back to the spaceport to land.
New Mexico has a long history of connection to space exploration. Few people know one of the last men to walk on the moon is from here. Harrison Schmitt, a Silver City native, joined the crew of Apollo 17 in 1972. The now 86-year-old trained as a geologist. He is also the only professional scientist to fly beyond low Earth orbit.
Next on 7, a different approach to space flight. A look at how Virgin Galactic blasts off with its own flare.
And giving back to the state that brought them to launch. How space tourism is starting to see a return on the taxpayer investment.
This is Countdown to Launch, New Mexico's journey to space.
Virgin Galactic has a unique approach to the launch.
Rather than the traditional straight-up launch that we're all used to seeing from NASA, this one's different. KOT's John Cardinelli shows us how it works.
When you think of a space launch, typically you imagine something like this.
3, 2, 1, main engine start, ignition, and liftoff of the Atlas V with Maven.
A spacecraft standing tall next to a launch tower, its tail lighting up at blastoff. And in launch after launch, from Mercury and Apollo, through NASA's 30-year space shuttle program, launching 135 missions using a fleet of 5 spacecraft, and even missions to the International Space Station, like this one, carrying seeds for New Mexico chilies for a food-growing experiment. All of them launch vertically. But Virgin Galactic has a different approach. It launches like a regular airplane, with Eve, the mothership, carrying Unity, the spacecraft, joined together and flying as one unit. It takes about an hour for the pair to reach the release altitude of 45 to 50,000 feet. That's about 20,000 feet higher than the average airliner flies. Then Eve releases Unity and the rocket engine fires.
3, 2, 1, release, release, release. Fire, fire!
After the separation, Eve returns to Spaceport America. At the same time, Unity noses up, riding the rocket into space. Just before apogee, the ship hits weightlessness as the rocket motor shuts down. Then apogee, the highest point the flight will reach, about 55 miles above Earth. Beth Moses, the only person to fly as a passenger on Unity, tells us what it's like.
I purposely joined the pilots near the cockpit for apogee. And that's probably the standout moment of my life. Floating, free, in the ship, and the ship came to a stop above Earth, and it felt endless.
The glide back to New Mexico is unpowered. a controlled fall, not unlike the way the space shuttles once returned to Earth. Unity glides back to Spaceport America for landing about a half hour after she was released. I'm John.
Another spacecraft due to launch this month takes a more traditional approach. Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin is planning their first crewed mission from Van Horn, Texas, July 20th. Much like the earlier missions, Mercury, Apollo, and Gemini, the New Shepard uses a booster rocket with a capsule on top. Before launch, the crew goes up to the tower, getting into the capsule, which they say has the largest viewing windows available. After launch, the capsule separates from the rocket into space. Then it returns to the launch facility, landing vertically for reuse. The capsule spends about 10 minutes in space before returning. The descent is controlled using a series of parachutes.
Spaceport America is unique in New Mexico. It's the first terminal in the world built specifically for space travel. But it isn't the only commercial spaceport. Across the country, 8 states have spaceports or launch facilities that allow commercial flights. But they also serve as airports or were converted out of an airport runway. Regionally, Texas leads with the highest number of launch facilities. Blue Origin and SpaceX both have private facilities there. Spaceport America has active launches from several of its tenants, including companies called Spin Launch and UP Aerospace. Virgin Galactic operates out of the spaceport, but it's not the only company. Hundreds work there every day with a mission to reach the stars. In 2005, then Governor Bill Richardson announced an out-of-this-world project. It would cost taxpayers $200 million, but promised to bring hundreds of jobs to the state.
It's going to put southern New Mexico on the map.
Today, Spaceport America is starting to follow through on the promises of those who launched the dream. More than 250 full-time employees work here. Spaceport is a big facility, and Virgin Galactic is not the only company using space. Virgin Galactic is the largest employer, providing about 180 jobs. A company called Spin Launch just started operating in New Mexico earlier this year with 40 employees. So what do? Well, they offer few details, but they're planning suborbital testing later this year. 30 employees with Fiore Industries work at the spaceport, too. They work on security and fire services and have a $50 million contract with NASA. HAPS Mobile spent $8 million to build its own airstrip. Last year, they launched what's called a sun glider that reached an altitude of more than 60,000 feet above sea level, housing 35 people in a Las Cruces hotel and investing $8 million, putting local contractors to work, building an airstrip and company facilities.
One big difference between this launch attempt and others that have come before is this one has a small group of invited guests. Between the crew, dignitaries, and media, Las Cruces' 3,100 hotel rooms are filling up. The Ramada says the Virgin Galactic team has booked half their rooms.
So you can feel it in the air. You start talking about it and everybody's like, yeah, this is going to be great.
We know this event is going to generate a lot of interest on the national and international scale.
As for the economic impact, tourism officials say visitors to the city tend to spend around $200 a day. In total, the launch is expected to bring the area about $400,000 in tourism money. It is a race into the final frontier. Nancy Laughlin looks at 2 companies that each hope will dominate space tourism.
The billionaire race into space is taking off. Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos racing neck to neck to be the first to reach the stars. Until recently, Bezos' Blue Origin looked to be in the lead when he announced his first flight scheduled to lift off on July 20th from West Texas. Branson took to Twitter to congratulate Bezos. Next, we started hearing about who would fly with Bezos.
Sold $28 million.
And that's how much one unknown bidder is paying to be a part of history and take the 11-minute trip into space with Bezos.
It's a thing I've wanted to do all my life.
The billionaire will also be joined by his brother, Mark.
I really want you to come with me. Would you? Are you serious? I am.
A 4th person will join them, Wally Funk. She grew up in New Mexico and was trained as an astronaut in the Mercury program, but was not selected to go into space. The journey is a suborbital flight going just 100 kilometers into space, allowing customers to feel weightless for about 3 minutes.
Does it sting a little bit that it looks as if Virgin won't be, the first, and that Blue Origin might win that part of this race?
I will point out that we've now sent seven people into space, and we've made 5 new astronauts. We were the first of the space companies to get people up there, but we honestly don't see it as a race.
As the world was looking forward to the Blue Origin launch, Virgin Galactic announced it would get into space first in July, just days before Bezos.
This July, our dream will become a reality.
In the history of space travel, fewer than 600 people have been to space. And whether it's Bezos or Branson, if successful, these flights for both companies are sure to kick off a new type of tourism, allowing those that can stomach the price and the adrenaline rush their own set of astronaut wings and bragging rights for life. Nancy Laughlin, KOAT Action 7 News.
Bezos said he picked July 20th to launch because it is the 52nd anniversary of the first moon landing.
Coming up next, America's space programs have their foundations in the land of enchantment. A look back at how we got to launch day and a peek into what comes next.
This is Countdown to Launch, New Mexico's journey to space.
Long before Spaceport America and Virgin Galactic, New Mexico was in the space game. The Museum of Space History in Alamogordo pays tribute to the involvement of our state in space pioneering. Even as early as the 1920s, the man credited as the father of modern rocketry used New Mexico as a testing ground for his newly invented liquid rocket fuel. Robert Goddard received a Medal of Honor for having a vision for space exploration.
Those early tests grew into New Mexico having a massive footprint in the space race. Holloman Air Force Base near Alamogordo was the center of space research in the 1950s. Dr. John Paul Stapp rode this rocket-powered sled 632 miles an hour, making him the fastest man alive at the time and propelling New Mexico into the space age. And some of the researchers there weren't human.
Ham was named actually using an acronym named after Holloman Aerospace Medical, where he was trained.
Ham was the first chimpanzee sent into space.
Ham really was a favorite amongst the trainers.
The Astro Chimp was just 6 years old when he wore this spacesuit, strapped into a metal capsule and launched for a 15-minute flight, which successfully made it back to Earth. His remains are now buried outside the International Space Hall of Fame in Alamogordo.
32 candidates reported to the Lovelace Clinic in Albuquerque, New Mexico for an exhaustive series of physical examinations.
Our nation's very first human astronauts also trained here. Dr. Randall Lovelace ran a clinic to test men and women for fitness to go to space. Dr. Ronald Kilgore did too. He told us his boss constantly made the case that women would be a better fit for spaceflight.
They had less weight, took less fuel to get them up.
But only men were chosen for the Mercury mission, and then Vice President Lyndon Johnson closed the Loveless portion of the space program in 1961. There's an interesting twist to this story, though. Jeff Bezos chose 82-year-old Mary Wallace Funk to fly to space with him. She grew up in Taos, and just look at these pictures. She was one of the women who trained here at the Loveless Clinic, following the same guidelines used by the men on the Mercury mission, but she didn't get to launch because she was a woman. Now, 60 years later, she's getting that chance to finally go into space, and this is what she told Bezos she will say when she lands back on Earth.
I will say, honey, that was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Out of this world discoveries have been made from New Mexico as well. Clyde Tombaugh founded Pluto in 1930 with a homemade telescope. KOAT interviewed him in 1994.
That was quite a thrill. It made my day.
He spent his life working and teaching astronomy in New Mexico. Today, astronomers continue to learn about the stars with the Very Large Array. Construction on the massive radio observatory 50 miles west of Socorro started in 1973. The mission of the most widely used radio telescope in the world is to scan the sky, mapping what is out there and increasing our knowledge of the universe. White Sands Missile Range, right next to the spaceport, has long been a site of testing and more for the military and NASA. In 1982, you might remember the Space Shuttle Columbia, here it comes, landed there. The ship diverted to southern New Mexico because the runways at Edwards Air Force Base outside of Los Angeles were too soggy after a week of very wet weather.
White Sands is also one of 3 ground stations making up the U.S. Tracking and Data Relay Satellite System. The White Sands ground is supported by those in Maryland and in Guam. Together, they work with a network of satellites to improve communication with vehicles in space.
So what's next for New Mexico's future? It seems several companies and groups have some ideas. Even as Virgin Galactic launches Unity, they are already developing the next generation of that spacecraft. The company revealed a design for Spaceship 3 months ago. Virgin plans to begin ground testing and glide flights later in the summer. Eventually, they hope this will fly as many as 400 flights a year. Boeing Starliner will continue to land in New Mexico. Once certified for manned flights, the 7-seat pod will fly to the International Space Station with 1 seat reserved for paying customers. The company is planning for 5 landing sites in western U.S., including New Mexico. We can all watch part of the future together Sunday morning as they launch from Spaceport America.
You'll see live coverage right here on KOAT beginning Sunday at 6 a.m. Thank you for joining us tonight to join in the excitement of launch day for Unity 22.